Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3002. That's 724-942-3002 for Dennis J. Courtney, MD.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AIM Impact on Your Health. AIM Impact on Your Health, where every day our goal is to have you learn at least one thing to help you live better and longer. AIM Impact on Your Health, heard each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. AIM Impact on Your Health, where each day you'll find current medical news, knowledgeable guests, fascinating health topics, and where we do encourage you to call in to join in. Today we're heading on out to the West Coast. A colleague of mine has surfaced, newly acquainted, I guess better said, but really a soulmate to the extent that we do the similar kind of work on two extremes of the country. I'm always interested to hear what they're doing out in L.A., and specifically with this gentleman in mind, after reading about him and having a chance to talk to him just briefly. I think we have a lot to learn today. I think I do. His name is Dr. Gregory Smith. He is the head of a pain clinic, a very large one, a pain clinic to the stars, as I guess I can now say after speaking to him yesterday. Got quite a few of those Hollywood stars that come to him. Anyway, we're going to be talking to Dr. Gregory Smith today about chronic pain. A lot of discussion over these last couple of months about it. Just another morsel for you today. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. And if in the course of our discussion with Dr. Smith, you want to call in to ask a question or make a comment, that number, as always, will be 412-825-6262, 412-825-6262. I'll give that number additionally throughout the hour. Now, I hope you really did enjoy, because I did enjoy bringing to you Faye Houston on Monday. I can't say enough about her plight, her journey, and her book, which I strongly recommend that all of you who have an interest in this would go ahead and get a copy. The name of that book, once again, was Silent Enemy, Environmental Illness and One Woman's Search for a Cure. The fact that, I don't know if it came across in the interview, but that search spanned over 30 years. That was exhaustive. This search was exhaustive, and I guess she finally feels that she's accomplished her goals and objectives, but across that time span, literally every single solitary alternative technique and procedure that is out there, this woman did, and then some. Anyway, Faye Houston, enjoyed interviewing her. I communicated with her by email a number of times on Monday and even yesterday, and I think we'll be bringing Faye back in the very near future, especially when it comes to one of her up-and-coming two new books that are just around the corner. She says sometimes around spring. The remainder of the month looking something like this, folks. On Friday, we'll open it up to you. We will have a Get 'em Up Out of Town version of the show where we let you set the agenda if you have a mind to. Then next week on Wednesday, it's going to be Peter DeWitt talking about recall healing. The byline here is Heal Thyself, Transform Your Life, Transform Your Health. And we're going to have Dr. Peter DeWitt with us to describe his book entitled The Very Same Term. As I flip the page and look into December, because it's not, Thanksgiving is coming quickly upon us. We'll be into the December mode here, and not too far distant future. Anyway, the December schedule is starting to fill up. Met an interesting guy yesterday. You'll know this from previous shows we did, because Standard Process, a company that high quality supplementation, protomorphogens, are the only company that make those. I won't explain them now. We'll talk about it then. But we used to have a very good friend of ours we always brought not only to the show, but to the office. His name was Jimmy Moresic. Still is, by the way. But he left us. He went down to work for Standard Process in the state of North Carolina. Anyway, Jimmy's replacement showed up in my office yesterday, and we had a chance to talk. Just throwing out, no, I didn't put him through the third degree or anything. I just wanted to throw out a couple pop quiz questions, and he really knew what he was talking about, I could tell. And he's dying to come onto the show and discuss with us standard process, some unique things he does with it, just like in the case of Jimmy Moresic. He does have a special offering here. His name is Brian Foltz. He's going to be with us on, well, right out of the chute, first day of December. Then we even scheduled him to return on the 13th. So a lot happening with that company. If you've come to respect them as I have, you'll maybe want to pay attention to find out all of the offerings of Standard Process. We've been supporting them and utilizing their products for many, many years now, and glad to see that the replacement finally showed up here. We were wondering who would replace those those shoes worn by Jimmy Moresic. Now we know. Named Brian Foltz, he'll be with us then. Let's see. It looks like as the December month is shaping up, that's about all that I have scheduled for it. So as it fills up, and it will fill up further, I'll let you know as time marches on. Now, in the news, just flying through the blogs as I have, this one always catches my eye. It has to do with the HPV vaccines. For those of you who don't know, that's a human papillomavirus vaccine. About 3 or 4 years ago now, it made to the marketplace, and it just has failed. Let's just put it that way. It failed from the respect of the public not embracing it, not at all. If it had any good features, which was debatable to say the least in terms of its ability to prevent cervical cancer, it suffered from quite a bit of publicity, negative publicity, when states grabbed a hold of this thing and started trying to ram it down the throats of parents and tried to double leg tackle girls in the 3rd and 4th grade, for goodness sake, to get the papillomavirus vaccine as if they were sexually active at that time. It was just crazy. It set off and touched a little flurry of negative press, and it's a little blurb now. It used to be big front page stuff. Little blurb now says, hey, the public's just not buying it. You are not going to sell that. You're not going to be able to dress that thing up and make it any prettier. They say about 30% response of all girls in the age group that this is supposed to be for. Let me get this one up. Dr. Vinicure had written an article that I caught on the blogs. He said, an alarming new study from the University of Maryland School of Medicine finds, sadly, very few young women are protecting themselves from cancer and taking the precaution of HPV virus. She laments this. As you can tell, that's where she's coming from. Showed that 30% only are responded. Oh yeah, the CDC currently recommends beginning vaccinations of girls 11 and 12 years of age with completion of a series of 3 shots up to age 26. It ain't working, and I got to tell you, I don't think it will. It's just not going to be able to get you on. It doesn't have a risk versus benefit profile good enough. Enough hazardous consequences surfaced with the use of this. Some young girls died, certainly other issues around it. And so HPV virus vaccine, another one bit the dust. This is just not going to survive. Okay, let's do this. It's awful early out there on the West Coast. We're going to be tracking down our good friend that we're now going to make a good friend, named Dr. Gregory Smith. Heads of pain clinic out there, the Comprehensive Pain Relief Group in L.A. He told me yesterday he's off to Fresno, wherever that is, today, and that's where we'll catch up with him, talking about a unique approach to pain. I say unique because I've read enough of the bylines that this gentleman's website puts out to know, hey, it's just not practiced that way around here. You'll see what I mean in a moment. We'll be right back with Dr. Gregory Smith talking about the LA-style pain control and pain relief centers in just one moment.
It seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instructions, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you were looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis Courtney, MD, is located at 3665 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-932-3002.
Have you been to the doctor lately with fatigue top of your plate with? Even if your doctor asks you what you need, the recommended 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day isn't really your busy schedule. What if you learned of a product 5 years in the formulation that delivers 5 servings of fruits and minerals in just 1 ounce? That's right, it's Through the Spirit. The blessings of Through the Spirit are now formulated into a delicious whole fruit puree product rich in antioxidants and minerals. Your health is more than just a test result. It's a balance of physical, spiritual, and emotional factors. You work regularly to strengthen your faith. Let Through the Spirit help cover your nutritional needs in a convenient and cost-effective ounce a day. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer.
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AM Impact on Your Health. Heard here in KHP 620 each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney with you today on this Wednesday version of the show. And gloomy as it may be outside, it's always bright in here. And today, we move to a brighter part of the country, at least sunshine-wise. There's sunshine all the time, with a gentleman who practices a similar art in a very different way. So interesting is it that I thought we really need to bring it to you today. Gentleman formulated a group out in LA referred to as a Comprehensive Pain Relief Group and utilizes an approach which he coins as NEST in treating chronic pain problems. Now we have invaded his morning, very early out there as you well can imagine, but nonetheless he consented to allow us to disturb him this morning to bring us up to speed on what he does and how he does it. His name is Dr. Gregory Smith. Good morning and welcome aboard, Dr. Smith. I'm very good. Likewise, I hope you are doing, Doctor. Thank you. But by the way, just speak closely into that phone of yours so we have a good connection, because sometimes it gets a little warbled. And I know you have a very strong voice, so see if you can speak a little loudly into your telephone this morning. Dr. Smith, here's one anesthesiologist to another. How is it, because we all have our own story, how is it you decided to go into anesthesia?
I really liked completely. I also liked most of the doctors that were doing it. It was like practicing internal medicine, but in an operating room setting. And I felt like you had to know a lot of things about the human body, because you really had life at risk when you were putting in for anesthesia in the operating room. And also, I've always, that's sort of how I got into pain management. I've always been concerned about people suffering. Most people, if you look at fear studies, would rather fear being in pain more than they do fear dying. So, nobody wants to be in pain. I didn't want to see anybody in my family or I care about being in pain. And so that's, the main reason I went into anesthesia is knowing that I was going to do pain management.
Oh, so you knew from the get-go that you really weren't going to be in the operating room. That was not your slice and cut of anesthesia. It was always meant to be in the chronic pain arena. Is that true?
That's pretty much true. Although I really did enjoy anesthesia. I did it for probably about 6 or 7 years after I got out of residency. But I just basically say the transition and learning during that time to go into, doing a fellowship and then go into pain management.
Now, as fellowships go and as specialty training goes, with respect to anesthesia, that is well understood. It's really perfected worldwide. It's good for guys like you and me to know. No matter where you require a surgery, there's an anesthesiologist at the helm who's going to be able to assist in that surgery and provide the anesthesia services pretty much like-minded, no matter where you are. Chronic pain work, at least at the program level, the specialty level, is pretty much, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least in my part of the country, a nerve block related approach to chronic pain. Is it that I left the program so much earlier than you did, or have things changed out there? Is it still pretty much nerve block related?
Well, again, excellent question. And, unfortunately, when you look at pain, I agree completely with what you said about anesthesia. It's pretty uniform whether you're getting it done, in Ohio or California or wherever, whatever state, Pittsburgh, wherever you are. But you're right, with pain management, especially chronic pain management, it's all over the board. And unfortunately, worldwide, the treatment of chronic pain has been really a colossal failure from not just what we do, but other alternative healthcare professionals. I could go into that in a minute, the reasons why. But yeah, it's still conventional. The conventional approach to pain medicine, unfortunately, is still based in medications and injection surgery, and there's definitely a place for those things. Unfortunately, if you go to a conventionally trained physician, that's usually what you're offered, and there are literally tens of millions of people out there that can attest to this. The people that are listening, that are in chronic pain, that these modalities just haven't worked for them.
So we both agree. The nerve block route, in my opinion, ask you yours, is really not the route. I mean, there is a place for it. If you use diagnoses, as I think you probably do, the real use for the nerve block is only in, like a herpes zoster, things like that, epidural steroids for those that may have some spinal stenosis. These are a small category of the large category of chronic pain producers. But all those other things, I just never found it to be, in my own hands, very successful. And I'm guessing you found it to be the same.
Exactly, and that's really what stimulated me to change to a different approach, because just as you said, epidural steroids are probably the most common pain block there is, and it's so overused because people go to a doctor with back pain, and all back pain is not created equal, but yet if you go to a doctor or a conventional physician for back pain, you get an epidural steroid injection, and unless they have a strong inflammatory component to their pain, the steroid injections either don't work at all to make the pain worse, or at best they work, but they wear off within a matter of weeks, months, and the patient's right back to where they started from.
So, okay, we are very much like-minded in how we view, even down to the very teaching programs that are just out there. They're just not cutting it. They're putting on a group of anesthesia-trained individuals that can do great nerve blocks, but that ain't where it's at, and I'm glad to hear that you and I are of like-mindedness when it comes to it. I picked this up off your website, and I'm going to throw it out to you because I think it allows us to have the dialogue begin in the right place. And so, off your website, I read, told you have to live with chronic pain, and you say you don't have to. The group, the Comprehensive Pain Relief Group, can find the source of your pain. Now, when you say that, that literally, in my mind, means that you're able to detect an appropriate diagnosis for the pain. Am I reading it right? In other words, can you actually find the actual cause? Because I think that is the big blunder out there with our colleagues. They're not ever looking for cause. They're squirting steroids, and they're squirting anesthetics, and they're using these nerve blocks just mindlessly. I seem to detect from just reading the little byline I read to you, you approach this differently, and I'm asking, is it a cure or is it the diagnosis that's ultimately what you're going after? And if it is, where do you find the diagnoses lie?
Well, again, with conventional approach, conventional medicine, it is a symptom treatment-based philosophy. Meaning, come with X, and we give you a pill for that, and give you an injection for that. There's often no time spent on actually trying to find what's causing the pain. But the problem with chronic pain is that often the diagnosis is far removed from what their original problem was. And I do a lot of workers' compensation. You have people that get injured, have a knee injury, let's say, and they end up getting arthroscopy or some other knee surgery, and then 5 years later, they're still taking 5, 10, 15 Norcos or Oxycontin a day for the pain, even though the MRI of the knee is normal, etc. So the source of the pain is really no longer the knee. The source of the pain is actually chronic pain syndrome, where the nervous system is flattened, it adapts, and unfortunately in a negative way in chronic pain. So often what's happening is the pain is coming from the nervous system itself, but yet when they go to doctors, they're still getting treated for the knee or the back or the bulging disc or anything or something like that. So the source of the pain is no longer a mechanical problem. It's no longer a disc bulge, but it's a defect in the nervous system itself, and you have chronic pain syndrome, neuropathic pain, and this is what the true diagnosis is, no longer the original problem they came for in the first place.
And how does that read on an ICD-9 code, doctor? What is the ideology? How do you put that? How is that finely phrased so that the insurer is able to appreciate what your diagnosis really is? What would it be?
Well, fortunately, there is an ICD-9 code. I think it's 338.4 chronic pain syndrome. And I know that only because I use it so often. And chronic pain syndrome, just for people listening, is really defined as chronic pain, a dependence on narcotic medication, and then other collateral problems very common, such as anxiety, depression, insomnia, muscle spasms. These are things that chronic pain patients almost all uniformly get. I mean, when a person's in pain for months, years, decades, they get depressed, they get anxious, they become insomniacs because their whole life has been taken from them. They're basically bankrupt emotionally, physically, and often financially because they can't work. And you can't treat that kind of a problem with an epidural steroid injection.
Well, you're so right about that. A final piece to this, the first flurry of questions would be, the term pain clinic literally has always bugged me. I wonder how you feel about it. I think maybe we also may be of like-mindedness on this, and that pain clinic was certainly, it came about, I say, because orthopedic surgeons didn't like seeing repeat surgical patients coming back and didn't know what to do with them. So they had to invent somewhere to get them out of their waiting room, doc. They just couldn't have them come back and look to treat their problems. In other words, their unsuccessful surgeries. And so the treatment of the pain became the basis for where they had to move to. Anesthesia sort of claimed the playground there, but nonetheless, I think the term pain clinic means we're just going to end up treating pain forever. And I've always rebelled against that term. How do you feel about that?
Well, yeah, pain clinic has become like really a term of a dumping ground for patients. Like you said, they're sort of shunned by the medical, the surgeons or whoever that's been involved in this patient's pain coming out from this nature. And it's really become a dumping ground. We don't know where else to put you, so you're going to go to a pain clinic. And unfortunately, pain clinics normally just end up being places people get prescriptions every 30 to 45 days. There's no real treatment and no real effort in trying to put an end to the pain. It's just, quote, pain management, which is basically medication and injections. And that's really no way to live. And unfortunately, that's how tens of people are living at this time. But I think it's sort of a negative term, and it also doesn't reflect all pain clinics, so to speak, are not equal. I mean, you have single practitioners, you have people. I think the term was really supposed to mean a multidisciplinary approach where the pain clinic you have a psychologist or a pain physician, a chiropractor, etc. But the term is used loosely, and in my mind, it's been a dumping ground for people that have failed treatment.
Boy, how like-mindedness can find one another crossing a whole country, okay? It's such a pleasure to talk to somebody that like-minded, and I'm going to move on because now, really, I diverge. And I diverge because of the approach that you take. I quite have never really heard before. I'm anxious to learn with you today, Doc. My listeners are wanting to learn with you too. You say that there is an approach to the treatment of chronic pain that follows, well, and it follows an acronym that you came up with called NEST. You say there are 6 things that you've got to deal with when treating chronic pain. It's your baby, Doc. You came up with it. How about telling my listeners and me how you came up with it and why you focus in on these 6 and how you came up with that an acronym, because I think it's beautiful.
Well, thank you. It's sort of a funny story, and I'll be brief because we're on the radio here, but for several years, I was very frustrated, like a lot of people out there, treating these problems, people not getting better, and so I decided to take a cruise by myself, which I don't recommend. It's full lonely, but I thought it was the only place I could go where my cell phone wouldn't work, etc. This was back in 2005, and I had all these ideas in my mind, but I couldn't seem to fit it together. I took a 14-day cruise to Hawaii, and on the 13th day, I still hadn't come up with anything. I was very frustrated. And the night before we were getting back to California, I was playing around with a bunch of words on a piece of paper, and then the acronym NEST came up for NEST. And what it stands for is nutritional, emotional, social, financial, physical, and psychological. And that, when I thought about it, was the 6 aspects of chronic pain, meaning that most conventional practitioners focus on the P, which is the physical.
That's right.
More injections, more medications, more surgery. But if you ignore the other factors, people don't get better, and that explains why worldwide the treatment of chronic pain has been a tremendous failure. But when you combine and treat all aspects of the chronic pain, what I call the chronic pain experience, then your success rate can go through the roof.
Well, now that is an interesting look at areas that I just know fall outside. They fall outside my domain, really, and I think that I'm this like highly advanced anesthesiologist, and you've caused me to take a look. I work in every one of those areas, but to apply these to pain patients that you have is really unique. Let's take that nutritional. Let's just take them in order. The nutritional component. You say it's so important in a chronic pain individual. How so, and how do you deal with it?
Well, in chronic pain patients, similar to patients that have depression, there's often chemical imbalances in the brain. You hear this, people talking about depression. You have low levels of serotonin or whatever, and these medications bring that back up. But you can do the same thing with nutritional, and I'm not talking about going to your local Costco or whatever, picking up a bottle of multivitamins. I'm talking about nutraceuticals, these are pharmacy-grade nutrients that give to people, also giving people IV or intravenous nutritional infusion to restore brain chemistry back to normal, and also, for instance, the vitamin B's are very good for nerve health. So a neuropathic pain, people with chronic pain have a defect in the nervous system. So when you give people higher doses of vitamin B, you can actually create a healing effect on the nerves. You help the nervous system heal, so to speak. You can help their pain. And then the second part of it is that the vast majority of people, because we live in a fast food world, etc., are just not healthy individuals. And most diets that people have are very inflammatory in nature. So if you put people on anti-inflammatory type diets, using custom nutrition programs, you reduce the overall inflammatory response to the body. All these things can cause reduction in pain. People really underestimate the power of nutraceuticals and true nutrition to reduce pain. I've had people that have completely gotten off narcotic medication simply with the nutritional component of the program.
That's just an amazing discovery that you would think to bring nutrition out. Number one, because it's right at the top of your list, and that the statement you just made is that sometimes with it alone, you've been able to conquer a chronic pain problem. Is that accurate? Is that true?
That's true. I mean, that's not the norm, but that's true because I can say this, that it's extremely rare that the nutritional part does not significantly impact the patient. And again, there are a lot of very great nutritionists out there, herbalists, etc., that know way more. I mean, I got people involved with me. I know a decent amount about nutrition just from my experience but I have really good people that I work with for that I rely on, because it's a discipline within itself. I think people have underestimated, think, oh, take vitamins or fish oil. Fish oil is a good thing, but all vitamins, nutrients are not created equal. The way that they're manufactured and packaged and et cetera make a huge difference in their potency. And when you really get high quality nutrients to people, it can really be a life-changing thing. And then the last thing about nutrition is that a majority of people, when they've been injured, become more sedentary because they're in pain and they gain weight. Extra weight causes pain. For instance, for knee pain, every pound that you are overweight adds 3 to 5 pounds of pressure when you take a step, or even more if you run. So if you have a patient who's gained 60 pounds over the last year or two because they've been sedentary from their injury, also getting weight off just in itself will reduce pain in the spine and the knee.
Hey, you think so much about that weight loss. It's right on the one of the banners of your website. In fact, that you have a chronic pain weight loss program that you actually go about to put people on an unspecified regime to allow them to use the weight. It's up front, it's center, and it's something that looks as though you probably weigh in everybody, and if they don't meet certain weight requirements, it's automatic to consider that as part of their treatment program. Do I read that correctly?
I think the majority of Americans in general are overweight, and there's a high percentage of people are actually obese or morbidly obese. So it's very common that people are overweight anyway, but the chronic pain patients especially are overweight because they're sedentary. And we do BMI and fat analysis. We use a called the BIA nutrition use to really get see what a patient's true body, not just body weight, but body composition. Because body composition is really more important than body weight. I mean, you can have a guy you can have an athlete, 6'2", and weighs 240 pounds. It's a great physical condition, but if you look at the old insurance charts, they're way overweight. So it's body composition, and it's not so much it's not so much the weight, but the composition. Yeah, we do that routinely when we track that. We track body weight, body fat percentage of BMI and BIA readings for patients pretty much at least on every other week or monthly basis.
Well, I got to say that's actually so unique to bring nutrition and weight loss in and make it a part and parcel to every workup. I salute you. You've supported it tremendously well in your explanation, yet it's pretty much absent from any pain program I know of. And you should be commended for looking at just the practicality of carrying extra weight that brings upon extra stresses, but the sedentary lifestyle that we have, plus if you're injured, you become even more sedentary, and the weight gain during that sedentary period completely augments what you may have already put on in the way of ugly amounts of weight. And so the problem is intensified by the fact that you are injured or you are having pain issues. Fair enough said, Doc?
That's very true.
The E part, NESP, emotional/psychological. Do you have a shrink on staff, Doc? Is there a psychologist? What is it that you delve into? How do you delve into it? And how intensely do you rate this particular component of your NESP program?
Well, the emotional, the social, the psychological, they're very closely interconnected. And to answer your first question, I usually don't employ a psychiatrist for these patients because most of these patients are depressed and anxious not because they have primary anxiety or depression, but because they're in pain. So in other words, if they're out of pain, they will no longer be depressed and anxious. So we tend to go with medical hypnotherapy in about 80% of the patients, psychotherapy in about 20% of the patients. The problem with psychiatry, and I'm not slamming the discipline of psychiatry because there's obviously a need, they're very medication-based. So if you go to a I tell the story that with my mother about 7 years ago, my mother right now is about 74 in great health, takes no medication, but my parents have been married about 45 years, and my dad has passed away. They've been married for, together since they were 7 to 8 years old. And she went to her family doctor for a normal checkup about a month after he passed away. And the doctor said to my mother, "You seem a little sad today. What's wrong?" She explained to him that her husband of 45 years just passed away. And he started writing out a prescription. And my mother said, "What's that?" And he said, "Well, it's a depression medication." And my mom looked at him and said, I'm sad. I'm not depressed." And I think that pretty much sums up what often happens when you go to a psychiatrist. So, not to divert too much, but that's why we tend to not do psychiatry. If a person, when they're initially evaluated, has a tremendous psychiatric overlay, meaning that they're suicidal, extremely depressed, I will get them to a psychiatrist before we even put them to the program, because that's the most urgent problem at that moment. So having said that, we use psychologists, and medical hypnotherapy is my favorite, because medical hypnotherapy is really a situation where you don't delve in why you're in pain and what happened to your childhood so much. Just really look at what this problem is and give a person tools to deal with insomnia, anxiety, and pain. So I had one lady, the biggest success story ever, a lady that had 5 back surgeries, was on huge doses of OxyContin, Norco for breakthrough, and 7 other medications. Now this again this is not the norm, but it happens. The spinal cord stimulator, intrathecal pump, nothing worked with this lady. And she got rid of her pain and got off all medications using hypnotherapy. And we taught her self-hypnosis, where she would see her pain in one of those little boats, like years ago, little kids would play little boats in the stream, and she would see her pain in the boat and watch in her mind's eye go down the stream until it's out of sight. And as the boat disappeared, her pain would go away. She was taught to do this, and she could be in a mall or shopping somewhere and start having pain and be able to sit down and do self-hypnosis to get rid of it. Extremely, extremely effective. So that's the approach we take to that.
Well, it's this universal component. I think if you have chronic pain and you're not depressed, you actually need a shrink. Wouldn't you say, Doc? Wouldn't that be a fair way of putting it? This is a completely normal response to agony issues, and that it's pretty much universal. If you're in chronic pain, you are depressed. And like I said, if not, bring on the shrink now. And the word shrink, by the way, I use, yes, to describe psychiatrists and psychologists, for which I'd like the idea, just as you mentioned, I don't want to bring any other drugs into this. That's usually the last thing you want to do. And so I do like the hint about using hypnotherapy and watching the boat flow down the street and go away. And that lady who had a spinal cord stimulator, mind you, and it didn't help her, was helped by a technique that she learned as simple as that. That's amazing. Great story, Doc.
And again, that's not the norm. I think the norm is usually the combination of treatments. This is really integrative medicine. I think that's what drug medicine in general is going to an integrative approach, where you look at, you can't deny anymore that there's legitimate treatments in Ayurvedic medicine and herbal medicine, Chinese medicine, and all that. And so what we have to do as physicians in this country is start looking at what other people do in other countries and vice versa, and stop having an ego about it and say, look, we need to do what's right for the patient. And if all my surgeries and stuff didn't work, but self-hypnosis did, well, then so be it. That's the best interest of the patient. But unfortunately, what happens with most practitioners all around the country is you'll have doctors say, well, you just have to live with the pain, because they've run out of ideas, and they condemn that patient to a life of pain, because when an authority figure tells you that you're going to have pain, it perpetuates the pain. It's almost like a law of attraction type thing. The same thing when the doctor says you have 3 months to live and the person dies in 3 months. No physician is God, and nobody has a crystal ball. So I don't think anybody should be told that they can't get rid of their pain, no matter how many years they've been in pain, no matter how many surgeries. I think everybody has a legitimate chance to significantly reduce, control, or even eliminate their pain.
Very positive outlook. The next in the NSP is the S portion, social, financial. Boy, I don't know many that deal with this component either. How do you handle this very difficult? Finances are shot usually. Persons can't work. They usually have a lawyer. I mentioned that. Everybody has a lawyer that comes to you. They're trying to fight in the workman's comp system to get paid. This all is related to things that you have to chime in and help, I'm presuming. How do you do that?
Well, the social financial component is to recognize that this is a legitimate problem. When a person has chronic pain, again, anyone listening that has chronic pain knows this, you become isolated. You don't want to go to social parties or shops because people are terrified they're going to have an attack above and beyond their normal baseline pain, but one of those attacks where they have to lay down. And so it gives anxiety to go out. So it makes them more isolated to their family and friends, which again perpetuates depression and pain, etc. The financial opportunity is they're not working. The more you don't work, the less money you have. So what we do to try to restore that is by have a volunteer program that's that's different than any of the best programs. The longest program for the workers' comp cases, we have like a 4-week volunteer program where we actually place them in nonprofit situations, feeding the homeless, etc. And this is after their pain is better. So there's less anxiety about working. You can't get fired from a job where you're not getting paid. A lot of people are afraid to go back to work because they're afraid, what if I have pain again? But if you're volunteering, it does two things. One, it builds self-esteem and self-worth. You're actually helping somebody that's more than likely in a worse situation than you. And secondly, it puts you back in the workplace under no pressure. It has you interact with people. And so it makes a big difference. And then if they can graduate to something else where they can get paid often through these nonprofit situations, it helps them start to earn money again once their case comes to an end or their pain is under control. And often they can't go back to the same job. And we have people that were working, in warehouses or for UPS or FedEx listing heavy boxes. But maybe they can be trained to something where they're at a desk, computer work. So I think that, especially in this day and age, you can work from home. People can be trained to do some kind of consulting or home business. It's very rare that a person can do absolutely nothing and cannot make any money.
That is so true. I want to throw this one in just a second time because not that it's something that you probably speak about on websites or even in groups, but every single one of your patients, if you have patients like mine, they all have a lawyer. They all have a case in the court pending, and things are moving towards a date. And it has been said, and I'd like to get your impression upon it, that really a patient with a case that's pending, with a lawyer in the wings, waiting for your deposition, is a patient that has a reason not to get better. Now, I know you know what I'm talking about when I say that. Enlighten our listeners as to, I believe, an axiom that you and I have to live with every day.
That's very true. That's why anytime you do scientific studies of the workers' comp population, the results are always worse. In other words, there's that overlying thought that there is a financial incentive not to get better. In my experience, the majority of patients really just want to get better. I can't tell you how many people told me, I don't even care about the money anymore. I just want to go back to work. I just want to get better. Most people don't make anywhere near as much money getting workers' compensation checks, temporary disability checks as they do working. There is no doubt that there is a segment of people out there that are trying to beat the system. I think the majority of people, especially when their date of injury is 2, 3, 5 years out, it's not even about money anymore because they're just suffering and they're motivated to get better. And just so you know, we do an initial evaluation. We don't put people in the program, and we try to weed out people that are malingering or faking it, or people that have a high, what's called secondary gain, meaning they have a reason to stay sick. Like you said, like their case is going to close because they're going to get more money, or their attorney said if you don't get better, we can get a better settlement. Try to eliminate. We don't want to waste our time or the patient's time trying to help somebody that truly doesn't want to get help. But in my experience, with most people, when they've been living in true chronic pain for months, years, or decades, they want to get out of it.
Fair enough said. And I think that using the number of years out of the injury as a guide is a nice little thing that I think I use too, because usually by the time the 5th, the 7th, the 10th, and you know how many years after the fact that you can actually see these people, the case is long gone by then. There is no more financial incentive. You just have agony issues that prevail, and in that particular situation, you don't have to worry about an incentive to stay in pain you got an incentive personally to get better if someone can show you the way.
I agree.
Okay, the P is where, well, everybody else who is in this game, plays in this sandbox, all of our colleagues, they jump right to the physical. Your physical approach is unique too. Describe for me all these modalities that you use that our friends who want to use steroids with an anesthetic are really way behind the times, aren't they, Doc?
Well, as I said at the beginning, there is a place, and we both agree there is a place for injections and things like that. And there's more and more research that shows doing epidural steroids quickly or early on has better rate of success than doing them later. The problem is when they become chronic pain patients, there's often no longer a true physical pain generator. So it's almost just be doing traditional physical therapy and injections and more surgery often doesn't work. In fact, many times this causes them to have more pain. Because anytime you do surgery on somebody and cause an effect on the nerves, you can run the risk of getting neuropathic pain, which is even more difficult to treat. So by the time they're chronic patients, we don't really look so much at first line doing injections, with the exception of trigger point injections, which is for muscle spasm. That often can be helpful even deep into a chronic pain patient as part of their therapy. But we use things like, and I think you've had that on your show before, the matrix machine.
Oh, do you like your matrix machines? I use plural because you got to have more than one. Do you like your matrix machines, Doc?
I think that they work very well, and the patients like it. What I look for with the matrix machine or any modality like that is, do you get pain relief after you're off the machine? And that's the one thing that I like, because the majority of patients see an effect after they get off. But the biggest problem I see is not so much with the machine as much as compliance. You have to do it pretty frequently, at least at the beginning, to get a better result. But electrical medicine, of course, acupuncture, and there's other modalities that are less scientifically proven, but there's any of these other modalities you can affect on the body to help with pain that are non-narcotic, I think have benefit. But we basically, the matrix is basically part of the protocol for treating people when they're in the program. One of the unless they have something like a reflux synesthetic dystrophy, which is also complex renal pain syndrome. Sometimes electric medicine actually make that type of pain aggravate or make it worse. But with that exception, most people derive benefit from the matrix machine.
And have you, now to compare some real notes, let's see, the numbers out there usually they say, and I'm finding it to be about the equal to what's been said, and I'm interested to hear what you think. You need about 4 to 6 treatments in order to know if you should stay in the game with the matrix or abandon it. Do you find about 4 to 6 treatments to be the give-and-go point where you can make that decision yourself?
Yeah, I think as long as they're done somewhat close together, and they're done over 4 weeks, probably not. Yes, it's done within a week or two. I agree. Similar with acupuncture and other modalities. A lot of times, if it's not working after 4 to 6 trials, you got to move on.
You got to move on. Fair enough.
Yeah, nothing works for everybody.
But there's a high percentage. I'm saying 80. I'd be interested to hear what your percentage is of people given those number of treatments that actually do show the response, and that this should be something to continue on with. About 80% of the time. You got any numbers higher than that, or does 80 work for you too?
No, I think 75-80% is a fair number, and again, it's different degrees of response. But I think if you put a positive response, yeah, I think it's that high. And within that number, there's people that can take their pain completely away, all the way. It helps a lot, or I'm able to reduce my medication intake, or I'm able to function better. All these things are positive indicators that it's working.
And in terms of the degree of pain relief, I'm always been amazed. Some people, a degree and the duration, I guess. I have some people, and you've got to see them too, that get, substantial pain relief, sometimes lasting days, and in rare cases, even weeks. Are you finding this to be, I was amazed when I first saw it, but geez, I'm coming to look forward to hearing that more and more. This can be a really long-term modality that doesn't require much effort. A 20-minute to 30-minute treatment can yield that kind of a pain result Are you finding that that's possible with the use of your matrix too?
I think it's very possible, and like I said, it depends on the person's problem. It depends on how they react to it. But yeah, absolutely. I think not only the matrix, I think there's other modalities that have similar and do similar results. Because the only matrix thing we do in the office is it's a bigger machine. You can't wear it on your belt.
That's right. It's not a TENS unit that you can put in the back seat.
But often what happens is after they've done well with the matrix, we can get them on a stimulation unit, not necessarily a TENS unit, but a ortho-stim or one of the higher tech units that has more than one modality. And sometimes give them another type of electrical medicine that will help them out. Even though the mechanisms are a little different, they can still get benefit from a portable device after they've had the matrix treatment.
Now, with respect to the insurance world, they probably know Dr. Smith pretty well by now. So the questions I'm going to raise have to deal with maybe the early on Dr. Smith, where you were a new entry into the pain realm with this NSP approach using IVs, all these various modalities. How well did your insurers handle paying for these? Did you find that the majority of these are covered by insurance or not?
Well, I ran to a brick wall, and I'm still beating down the wall. Anytime you do something that's different, people always view things that are different, either with they don't want to accept it or fear because they don't know. So it's been I spent probably 2 or 3 years literally lecturing to insurance companies up and down the state of California, which I still do, trying to get them to understand. And what the reality of the situation was is that it wasn't until about 2 or 3 years deep into me dealing with insurance companies that I realized that, and I just put it bluntly, they don't really care about if the patient's better. What they care about is how much money they're spending. So when I started showing them how much money I would save them over the course of a claim, sometimes up as high as $500,000, over the life
Absolutely,
of
sure.
the claim, then the doors started to open, because now they don't care if I'm giving people fake oil. Literally, if the patient's getting better and I'm getting positive results and getting them off, $2,000 and $3,000 a month narcotic bills, they're happy. So if that's the way, so to speak, I have to appeal to them to do what's right for the patient, that's what I will do and have done. But that's how I sort of have punctured that difficult balloon, and I'm still doing it. I mean, there's certain insurance companies that know what I do, and it's green light. There's other ones, it's a fight almost on a case-by-case basis. But the bottom line is that if I feel strongly about it, even if the insurance company won't do it, we will do it with what's called here in California on a lean basis. I don't like to do that, but there's people that are dying. I mean, I've had patients waiting to get approval for the NEST programs that have died. Not from an overdose, but just the fact that they're taking multiple medications, sleeping pills, anxiety pills, narcotics, just like some of the celebrities that have passed away from taking normal doses. So if I feel strongly about it, I will just do it anyway.
Now, you've opened up a whole different can of worms. In fact, a can of worms that really deserves its own day. And what I'm going to ask you is you got to promise to come back, because we're just going to be able to intro this issue of the dependent and addicted, which I believe is another service you offer. You do have many of the Hollywood stars that you end up treating, I'm sure. I know we talked about it briefly yesterday, obviously not to mention any of those names, but because of your work with the over-medicated, you end up providing a service for detoxification and rehabilitation that, bar none, is going to be some of the finest work in the country. And I can see where you could go up an insurance company and say, look, you've got an addicted individual. You've got so much money that you're going to have to lay out. If you don't get to the bottom of this now, your bottom line is never going to be seen. And they would respond. I think that is exactly the tack to take that allows you to get paid by insurers. In fact, that they will probably welcome the fact that you're on the scene. A couple of words on that, and then promise me that you'll come back and we'll talk just nothing but a solid hour on the rehab side of this, which I believe is fascinating, and I think my listeners would enjoy it.
Well, I would love to come back anytime I can speak to anybody about these things. I think a different approach has to be taken. There's so many people suffering in the United States and worldwide, so I'd be happy to come back. But you're right, the insurance company, that is the approach. The bottom line is it's the old 80-20 rule. 20% of their claims is 80% of their exposure, and it's people that have reached that situation where no one knows what to do with the patient. They're on multiple, 10, 15, 20 medications, doctor's visits, the emergency room visits, and there's no end in sight. If someone is on oxycontin or the fentanyl patch or whatever, these medications are good medications to be corrected, but when they're used for years on end, there is no endpoint in sight. With the phenomenon of tolerance, the more medication gets the same effect over time, most people, the doses just escalate over time, which cause other organ problems, kidney problems, gastrointestinal problems, which brings other doctors into the treatment plan, other medications. It's a vicious negative cycle. So the insurance companies are, yes, they're beating down the door now that they're starting to see the results because they could save a ton of money. That's really, unfortunately, the bottom line for them.
Well, Doc, we have what we say bongos in the background, signaling the fact that our hours come to an end. Look, colleague, I could speak to you for hours and hopefully have a chance to do so sometime in the future. You promised to come back. We'll set it up, folks. I promise we're going to bring Dr. Smith back to talk about this addiction side. I think it's just a great contribution, and I believe it's needed here in Pittsburgh, and absolutely I intend to pursue it. So, Dr. Smith, enjoy. You're in Fresno this morning, and you're working in another place. I don't know where you are. I don't know where Fresno is. You have a wonderful day, sir, and hopefully we can set up a time where you can come back in the very near future.
I appreciate it, Dr. Courtney. Thanks for having me on.
It has been my pleasure. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The doctor to the stars, okay? We'll be returning to talk about some of that work in the near future. Until then, this is Dr. Dennis Courtney with Dr. Gregory Smith saying so long for AM Impact on Your Health. Hey, Doc. I had a great conference.
AM Impact on Your Health is sponsored by
It was,
Director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in Milwaukee, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3002. That's 724-942-3002.